Hello, readers. This is a reading from the first chapter of Hazard of the Hills, book number 6 in the Parks Pat Mystery series. Margie studied Christina as she prepared to go out with her friends. Hat? Sunscreen? Bug spray? Mom! Christina gave her most exasperated teenager groan to the word. I don't need any of those things. It isn't like I'm going to get sunburned. Even with your dark skin, you can still get sunburned, Margie told her, smiling at the rich brown tone of Christina's skin, very close to Margie's own. Christina's Cree features were a little less pronounced than Margie's. Anyone looking at Margie immediately knew she was descended from one of the First Nations. Christina was most likely to be considered Indigenous, but her smaller nose and more rounded cheeks left enough doubt that people would ask, rather than just assuming. I remember going to an air show in Winnipeg once where I was standing outside in the full sun looking at the sky for 10 hours, Christina finished. Apparently, Margie had mentioned the story once or twice before. And your skin peeled. Margie nodded. Exactly. You get a burn like that once, and your chances of getting skin cancer skyrocket. It isn't worth the risk. If you would at least wear a hat to keep the sun off your face. No, I don't want a hat on, and I'm not going to be looking at the sky for 10 hours. We'll be outside for a few minutes, and then be in one of the buildings to eat or look at exhibits. I don't need a hat, and I don't need sunscreen. Margie didn't bring up bug spray again. Christina was rarely bothered by the mosquitoes, and it was going to be a warm day. The mosquitoes wouldn't be out until the evening. Okay, I'm going now, Christina informed her. She leaned down slightly to give Margie a hug and a kiss on her forehead, as if she were the child instead of Christina. Stop worrying. I'll have my phone with me. There's security, and you raised me well, so there's nothing to fuss about. I'll be fine. Margie knew that she probably would be, but that didn't stop her from worrying. Things could still happen. Girls could be lured and trafficked. There was, unfortunately, an increase in trafficking around the Stampede, with extra girls brought in to serve the tourists and locals looking for some Stampede side action. What if some of those traffickers were looking to increase their stables? Christina was an attractive girl of the right age, and as sophisticated as she was, there was no guarantee she would recognize the danger if she were approached by a teen boy who showed her interest. Who's going with you? You guys will stay together, right? We're going as a group, Christina said, which didn't actually answer the question of whether they would stay together all the time. It's just some friends from school. You don't know all of them. Is Tracy going? Yes, eye roll. Tracy is going. Tracy, a boy, not a girl, would help to deter approaches by young men, but also brought more worries. You won't go off on your own? It's not safe for you to just wander by yourself. It will be perfectly fine, Christina insisted. I'll be okay, Mom, I promise. Maybe I should come along, seeing as it is Community Spirit Day, and I really should go see the Elbow River Camp. I went a couple of times when I was a little girl, but that was a long time ago. You are not coming with me. Margie smiled and gave her daughter a squeeze. Don't give me reason to, then. Be safe. Take all the precautions, even if you think that I'm being silly and you don't need to. Remember, I'm a cop. I've seen a lot more than you. Yes, Mum. Christina's tone was pained. Now I have to go. They're texting me. She flashed her phone at Margie to show her how impatient her friends were. I'll talk to you later. When will you be home? I don't know. It might be late. We might go to Peter's and then find a place to watch the fireworks. Margie salivated as she remembered her own trips to the drive-in with her friends, those summers she'd visited her Moshum. Peter's burgers, milkshakes in unending varieties, so thick you could hardly suck them through a straw, and big baskets of fries. Back in those days, she could eat things like that without putting on weight. Call or text me a couple of times during the day, just to touch base, she told Christina. Then I won't call you. Okay, Mom, bye. Christina touched Margie fleetingly on the arm to soften her abrupt reply and dashed out the door. As she left, Margie saw that she was wearing sandals. If she walked in those all day, the backs of her heels were going to be raw. Christina had promised that she would be okay. She was sure that she could control the outcomes, when all she could really control were her own choices. Once Christina was on her way, Margie did a quick sweep through the kitchen and the rest of the house to make sure that all the dishes were in the dishwasher and clothes from the previous night were in the hamper. The house looked reasonably tidy. Christina didn't always remember to pick up after herself, but she was pretty good about it. Better, Margie was sure, than she herself had been as a teenager. She hadn't made the best choices herself, becoming pregnant with Christina when she had been barely older than her daughter was now. That thought made her shudder. She had thought she was so grown up, such an adult. She hadn't known how much growing up she'd be forced to do in a short time to keep her daughter and get herself back on track. Margie's phone vibrated in her pocket. She pulled it out, expecting to see a text from Christina, but it kept vibrating in her hand, a picture of Caitlin Jones, one of Margie's fellow homicide detectives, on the screen. Blonde, friendly, smiling in the picture, she'd made Margie feel immediately welcome in Calgary when Margie had arrived less than a year before. Margie swiped to answer the call. Detective Patenaude. Is this Detective Parks, Pat? Jones asked smartly, which meant that Margie's assumed specialty in solving homicides that took place in Calgary parks was being called upon. She let out her breath. What have we got? I don't know many details yet. Body found in Edworthy Park. A woman. That's all I know so far. Meet me there? Will do, Margie agreed. Will it be on my GPS? I'm sure it will be, and the scene is actually fairly close to the south parking lot, so it shouldn't be hard for you to find once you get there. Just look for the yellow tape and people trying to see what's going on. Okay, Margie headed over to the door to put on her shoes. Tell me there isn't any water at Edworthy Park? Jones laughed. It's on the river, but you're in luck this time. The body is not in the water. Thank goodness for that. I'm beginning to think that I'm going to have to invest in a life jacket as part of my on-scene uniform. Jones chuckled at that. See you there, she said, and hung up. All right, that is a reading from the first chapter of Hazard of the Hills, which is book number 6 in the Parks Pat Mysteries series. Hope that you will enjoy reading that.